Namaskar and welcome to Global Scan. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. This is your one-stop destination for a roundup of all the major global developments of the week. As Taliban prepares to form government in Afghanistan, fears about the region turning into a safe haven for global terrorists again, and these apprehensions are not unfounded. In other news, Hurricane Ida leaves behind trail of destruction in the United States. Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga is to step down to make way for new leadership. All that and more in Global Scan. Let's get started with the top stories. India's month-long presidency of the powerful United Nations Security Council ends with substantive outcomes on key global issues. India is currently a non-permanent member of the 15-nation UNSC. Afghanistan wakes up to a new era under Taliban after US completes withdrawal. Major General Chris Todhue, last American soldier to leave Afghanistan after 20 years of its military presence. US shifts its Afghani diplomatic mission to Qatar. Prime Minister Narendra Modi directs high-level group of EAM, NSA and senior officials to focus on immediate priorities of India in Afghanistan. Issues pertaining to the safe return of stranded Indians, travel of Afghan nationals to India being prioritized. Group to ensure that Afghan territory is not used in any manner for terrorism directed against India. Hurricane Ida leaves behind trail of destruction in Louisiana, knocks out power in over 1 million houses, around 113,000 houses in Mississippi left without power. 911 services largely disrupted in New Orleans. US President Biden says working to assess full extent of the damage. World battles COVID-19. South Africa scientists detect new coronavirus variant with multiple mutations, but yet to establish whether it is more contagious or able to overcome immunity provided by vaccines or prior infection. Let's begin with news from Asia. Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga on Friday said he would step down, setting the stage for a new premier. Suga, who took over after Shinzo Abe resigned last September, citing ill health, has seen his support rating sink to below 30% as the nation struggles with its worst wave of COVID-19 infections ahead of general elections this year. Suga's decision to not run in a ruling Liberal Democratic Party election in September means the party will now have to choose a new leader who will become Prime Minister.
I want to focus on working on COVID-19 measures, so I said I will not run in the LDP election. While I had the schedule to run in the election, thinking about COVID measures and election activities needed an enormous amount of energy. In that situation, I could not do both. I needed to choose one.
And India's month-long presidency of the powerful United Nations Security Council ended on August 31st with substantive outcomes on key global issues. India is currently a non-permanent member, that's a 2-year term, of the 15-nation UNSC. Here's a look at some of the major highlights during this period of India's presidency of UN Security Council in the month of August.
India took over the presidency of the UN Security Council for the month of August. Key focus areas during its UNSC presidency were maritime security, peacekeeping and counter-terrorism.
India has just assumed the presidency of the United Nations Security Council on the 1st of August. It is indeed an important moment for India and for all of us in the permanent mission of India to the United Nations.
Here are the key highlights of all the events that took place during India's presidency. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a high-level open debate on maintenance of international peace and security, maritime security. As the first Indian Prime Minister to chair an open debate at UNSC, the Prime Minister underscored the need for a framework of mutual cooperation to conserve and utilize our shared maritime heritage.
लेकिन हमारी इस साझा समुद्री धरोहर को आज कई प्रकार की चुनौतियों का सामना करना पड़ रहा है। आज के संदर्भ में भारत ने इसी खुले और इंक्लूसिव एथोस के आधार पर सागर, सिक्योरिटी एंड ग्रोथ फॉर ऑल इन द रीजन का विजन परिभाषित किया है। इस विजन के जरिए हम अपने क्षेत्र में मैरीटाइम सिक्योरिटी का एक इंक्लूसिव ढांचा बनाना चाहते हैं। ये विजन एक सेफ, सिक्योर और स्टेबल मैरीटाइम डोमेन का है।
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar chaired an open debate on technology and peacekeeping. He stressed on the crucial role of peacekeeping in maintaining international peace and security.
Because the nature of peacekeeping missions and their attendant threats have become more complex, it is vital that our capabilities to secure the peacekeepers keep pace. We owe it to them. India has been a pioneer in UN peacekeeping, deploying more than 250,000 troops over the years in as many as 49 peacekeeping missions, serving under the blue flag. 174 gallant Indian soldiers have made the supreme sacrifice over the years. It therefore gives me great pleasure to announce that India is supporting the UN in the rollout of Unite Awareness Platform across select peacekeeping missions.
Additionally, the UN Security Council adopted a resolution on accountability of crimes against UN peacekeepers and presidential statement on technology for peacekeeping. The resolution drafted by India was co-sponsored by all the members of the Security Council and over 80 UN member states. India and the UN also exchanged an MOU in support of the Partnership in Peacekeeping initiative. Dr. S. Jaishankar also chaired the UNSC briefing on threats to international peace and security caused by terrorist acts. In his address, EAM reiterated an 8-point action plan to credibly address the menace of terrorism and India's full support for counter-terrorism cooperation under the auspices of the UN.
1. To summon the political will. Don't justify terrorism, don't glorify terrorists. 2. No double standards. Terrorists are terrorists. Distinctions can only be made at our own peril. 3. Don't place blocks and holds on listing requests without any reason. 4. Discourage exclusivist thinking and be on guard against new terminologies and false priorities. 5. Enlist and delist objectively, not on political or religious considerations. 6. Recognize the linkage to organized crime. 7. Support and strengthen the FATF. And 8. Provide greater funding to the UN Office on Counterterrorism. I call on this Council to collectively build on these principles.
Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla chaired the UNSC meeting on the situation in the Middle East, including the Palestinian question. He presided over the adoption of 3 important mandate extensions of UNSC resolutions: Mali sanctions, UNISOM, United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon. UNSC resolution on Afghanistan was also adopted. India also chaired the briefing and consultations on Syria, chemical weapons, briefing and consultation on Afghanistan, briefing and consultation on Somalia, briefing and consultations on Afghanistan, briefing and consultation on Yemen, briefing and consultations on Syria, briefing on Iraq, briefing and consultations on peace and security in Africa. Other highlights include adoption of presidential statement on closure of United Nations African Union mission on Darfur, press statement on Afghanistan condemning terrorist attack against UN compound in Herat and expressing concern on Taliban's military offensive, press statement on Afghanistan, UNSC closed meeting on Myanmar, UNSC press statement on briefing on ISIL Daesh, press statement on terrorist attack on Kabul.
Indeed, it has been a busy month and one in which we have rallied to seek consensus on several important issues within our purview. We could not have done it alone, and without the hard work, support and positive contributions of every delegate, every delegation and the representatives of the Secretariat, including the conference service officers, interpreters, verbatim reporters and security staff.
The US military has completed its withdrawal from Afghanistan to end a brutal 20-year war, which has been America's longest. It started and ended with the hardline Taliban in power. Despite billions of dollars spent trying to rebuild the conflict-wrecked country, the withdrawal came after fraught finale days of frantic mission to evacuate tens and thousands of Americans and Afghans who had helped US-led war in the effort.
And this marks the end of 20 years of war. After 20 years of war, the Taliban has returned to a position of control in Afghanistan. Major General Chris Donahue, commander of the 82nd Airborne Division, stepped onto a C-17 transport plane on August 30, the last US service member to leave the Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul, Afghanistan. Final flights transporting the last US troops took off a minute before midnight, marking the completion of the US pullout that ended America's longest war. Washington and its NATO allies carried out a massive and chaotic evacuation over the past 2 weeks. There are many still left behind. These tens of thousands of stranded Afghans helped Western countries and might have qualified for evacuation, but their hopes have died.
I'm here to announce the completion of our withdrawal from Afghanistan and the end of the military mission to evacuate American citizens, third country nationals, and vulnerable Afghans. Tonight's withdrawal signifies both the end of the military component of the evacuation, but also the end of the nearly 20-year mission that began in Afghanistan shortly after September 11th, 2001. Look, there's a lot of heartbreak associated with this departure. We did not get everybody out that we wanted to get out, but I think if we'd stayed another 10 days, Louis, we wouldn't have gotten everybody out that we wanted to get out.
Celebratory gunfire echoed across Kabul before dawn after the last US troops took off from the airport, ending 20 years of war in Afghanistan that left the Taliban stronger than it was in 2001. Following the withdrawal of the final foreign troops, Taliban fighters took control of the airport before dawn on Tuesday. Fireworks and tracer bullets lit up the night sky in Kabul after final flights departed from the Hamid Karzai International Airport, with one of the aircraft deploying flares as it took off. Blinken said the US will engage with the Taliban government if it is in our vital national interest.
Now, US military flights have ended, and our troops have departed Afghanistan. A new chapter of America's engagement with Afghanistan has begun. It's one in which we will lead with our diplomacy. The military mission is over. A new diplomatic mission has begun.
The United States Security Council has meanwhile, under the current presidency of India, adopted a resolution on the situation in Afghanistan demanding that the war-torn country not be used to threaten or attack any nation or shelter terrorists. In an emergency meeting, the UN Security Council called on the Taliban to honor its commitment to allow Afghans and foreign nationals to leave the country.
As Afghanistan enters the next chapter, it is imperative that the international community remain unified and resolute, including in holding the Taliban accountable for its commitments. One such commitment which the Taliban has made publicly and privately is that those who wish to leave Afghanistan will be able to do so. Today's resolution signals just how seriously the Security Council takes that commitment, along with the commitments to allow humanitarian aid to flow and prevent terrorism.
Foreign Secretary Shringla chaired the UNSC meet under the Indian presidency. He said the resolution is a very positive development and it especially supports women and minorities.
This resolution also highlights the importance of upholding human rights, in particular in the case of women, children, and minorities. India has always provided a very strong support to minority communities in Afghanistan, in particular the Sikh and Hindu minority communities. And it is an important part of our effort to try and bring those Afghan nationals, including minorities who want to leave Afghanistan, and evacuate them. And I think the resolution, in that sense, has indicated a need for developing a safe zone for the passage of travelers in and out of Kabul airport, which is indeed a very positive development.
The UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, appealed on Monday for funding towards a $1.3 billion humanitarian response plan set for use inside Afghanistan. Deputy UN High Commissioner for Refugees Kelly Clements issued the request during a visit to the Jordanian capital Amman. Clements said that a total of 3.4 million people were internally displaced inside Afghanistan, 120,000 of which in July 2021 alone. placing the humanitarian situation inside the country as a priority. UNHCR has also issued a response plan for refugee hosting countries for both response and contingency planning of almost $300 million. A WHO plane carrying 12.5 metric tons of supplies landed in Afghanistan.
This is the first shipment of medical supplies to land in the country since the Taliban took control. 12.5 metric tons of supplies are enough to cover the basic health needs of more than 200,000 people, as well as provide 3,500 surgical procedures and treat 6,500 trauma patients. They will be immediately delivered to 40 health facilities in 29 provinces across Afghanistan. Our friends in Rome at the UN Food and Agriculture Organization also said that food production and agricultural livelihoods are under extreme pressure in Afghanistan. FAO warned that if we fail to assist the people most impacted by acute drought, large numbers will be forced to abandon their farms and be displaced in certain areas.
The 20-year conflict took the lives of nearly 2,500 US troops and an estimated 240,000 Afghans and cost some $2 trillion. All eyes are on the Taliban-led government in Afghanistan. Will they keep their promises or not? Remains to be seen. DD India.
An Indian ambassador to Qatar, Deepak Mittal, met the head of Taliban's political office in Qatar in a meeting held on the request of the Taliban side that focused on safety, security and early return of Indian nationals stranded in Afghanistan. India raised its concern that Afghanistan soil should not be used for anti-India activities. Taliban assured that India's concerns will be positively addressed.
The government of India is keeping a close watch on the fast evolving situation in Afghanistan. India is concerned about the security situation in Afghanistan in the wake of twin bomb blasts last week, drone attacks and reports of sporadic violence from it. As per sources in the Ministry for External Affairs, the highest echelons of the Indian government, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi and External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, are monitoring the situation in Afghanistan.
The evolving situation in Afghanistan, the Prime Minister has directed that a high-level group comprising of the External Affairs Minister, the National Security Advisor and other senior officials of the Government of India will focus on immediate priorities of India and Afghanistan. In fact, this group has been meeting regularly over the past few days. It seized of issues pertaining to the safe return of stranded Indians who are still in Afghanistan, and also of the travel of those Afghan nationals, especially belonging to the minorities of Afghanistan who might wish to come to India. The group is ensuring that the territory of Afghanistan is not used in any manner for terrorism directed against India. The group has also been monitoring the ground situation in Afghanistan and the international response to it, including the UNSC resolution passed by the Security Council, the 2593 resolution, which basically states that demands that Afghan territory is not used to threaten or to attack any country or to shelter or train terrorists or plan and finance terrorist acts. In fact, this 2593 resolution that the UNSC passed under the presidency of India, as India is the current president of the Security Council, specifically mentions individuals and entities designated pursuant to the UNSC resolution 1267, which includes organizations like the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed.
पूरी दुनिया के लिए एक चुनौती है और अफगानिस्तान में जिस तरह प्रतिपल स्थितियां बदल रही हैं, भारत में एक सक्षम सरकार है और योग्य नेतृत्व हमारे पास है। हम प्रत्येक स्थिति पर नज़र रखे हैं और हिंदुस्तान के किसी भी व्यक्ति को किसी तरह का नुकसान न हो, इसके लिए सरकार पूरी तरह से प्रतिबद्ध है।
With the top brass in India keenly watching the developments in Afghanistan, India established diplomatic contact with the Taliban in Qatar on Tuesday. Indian ambassador to Qatar, Deepak Mittal, met Sher Mohammad Abbas Stanekzai, the head of Taliban's political office in Doha, at the Indian embassy in Doha on the request of the Taliban side. They discussed safety, security and early return of the Indian nationals stranded in Afghanistan, besides the travel of Afghan nationals, especially minorities who wish to visit India. Ambassador Mittal raised India's concern that Afghanistan's soil should not be used for anti-Indian activities and terrorism in any manner. The Taliban representative assured the ambassador that these issues would be positively addressed. This comes close on the heels of a video statement by Stanexai on Sunday that India is very important for the subcontinent and the Taliban wants to continue Afghanistan's cultural, economic, political and trade ties with India like in the past, in what was the first categorical statement directed at India by a senior leader of the Taliban since they captured power in Kabul on 15th of August. Back home, the government of India briefed floor leaders of various political parties in India on the Afghanistan crisis last week. On Prime Minister's direction, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar gave the briefing. After Taliban's takeover of Kabul, India evacuated its diplomatic staff, majority of its national and some Afghan nationals, including minorities, directly or via third countries with the help of Indian Air Force aircraft and Air India planes. The government of India had swung into action as soon as the situation in Afghanistan deteriorated and asserted that safe passage for Indian nationals from Afghanistan is a top priority. 2 days after Taliban's takeover, Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Security where he was briefed about the situation in Afghanistan. India evacuated Afghan minorities including Sikhs and Hindus and also brought 3 copies of Sri Guru Granth Sahib to India from a Kabul Gurudwara. The sacred scripture was received by Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri at Delhi airport. He carried the Sri Guru Granth Sahib on his head, showing utmost respect to it. Prime Minister Narendra Modi acknowledged that even though there are challenges in Afghanistan, the sacred scripture was safely brought to India. India played a key role in reconstruction of war-ravaged Afghanistan and is mindful of the situation in the region, as it is likely to have security and other implications. With Amritpal Singh, Bureau Report, DD India.
Let's now take a look at news from the Americas. Less than 24 hours after the last United States military flight left Kabul, President Joe Biden mounted a defense of the withdrawal, saying that it was the right decision to end United States' 20-year military presence in Afghanistan. Speaking in a firm tone from the White House, Biden said keeping U.S. troops in control of the airport in Afghan capital beyond August 31st withdrawal deadline would have exposed them to heightened security risk.
U.S. President Joe Biden vigorously defended the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan, saying his administration had evacuated the vast majority of Americans who wanted to leave the country and would refrain from future military action that lacked clear, achievable goals. In an address to the nation, a day after the end of a 20-year-old U.S. presence in Afghanistan, Biden emphatically argued that it was the right decision and called the evacuations of Americans an extraordinary success. He asserted that August 31st was not an arbitrary deadline, but was designated to save American lives.
I take responsibility for the decision. Now some say we should have started mass evacuations sooner. And couldn't this have been done in a more orderly manner? I respectfully disagree. Imagine if we'd begun evacuations in June or July, bringing in thousands of American troops and evacuating more than 120,000 people in the middle of a civil war. There still would have been a rush to the airport, a breakdown in confidence and control of the government, and it still would have been a very difficult and dangerous mission. The bottom line is there is no evacuation from the end of a war that you can run without the kinds of complexities, challenges, and threats we faced. None.
Biden said the only other option would have been to step up the fight. He asserted that he was neither in favor of extending this forever war nor extending a forever exit.
By the time I came to office, the Taliban was in its strongest military position since 2001. Controlling or contesting nearly half of the country. So we're left with a simple decision. Either follow through on the commitment made by the last administration and leave Afghanistan, or say we weren't leaving and commit another tens of thousands more troops going back to war. That was the choice, the real choice, between leaving or escalating. I was not going to extend this forever war, and I was not extending a forever exit.
Biden also criticized the ousted Afghan government's inability to fight back against swift Taliban advances, which forced the United States and its NATO allies into a hasty and humiliating exit.
I simply do not believe that the safety and security of America is enhanced by continuing to deploy thousands of American troops and spending billions of dollars a year in Afghanistan. But I also know that the threat from terrorism continues in its pernicious and evil nature. But it's changed, expanded to other countries. Our strategy has to change too.
Finally, the president assured that his administration would continue to help Americans exit the country, saying 100 to 200 of them remained after more than 5,500 Americans had gotten out before the withdrawal ended. Bureau Report, DD India.
And Hurricane Ida battered through at least 4 states in the northeast United States, triggering torrential rains, flash floods that swept away cars, submerged subway lines and grounded airline flights from Virginia to New England. Death toll has been mounting while many are still unaccounted for. Large swaths of affected regions remain waterlogged as officials struggle to provide an exact rundown of the situation. Hurricane Ida, one of the most powerful hurricanes ever to strike U.S. Gulf Coast, made landfall on Sunday in Louisiana, destroying entire communities.
These visuals tell the painful tale of the residents of Louisiana in US who have lost everything to Hurricane Ida, one of the most powerful hurricanes to batter United States. Hurricane Ida left behind a trail of destruction before it downgraded to a tropical depression on Monday. Residents, forced to pick up the pieces in the aftermath of Hurricane Ida, share their haunting stories as they visit the places where their homes used to be. A video posted online on Wednesday night showed multiple motorists stranded in their vehicles in Yonkers, New York after getting caught in flash floods that pummeled parts of New Jersey and New York State.
It's a living room and the bathrooms back here, bedrooms over here. You see the bed, washer, dryer, and washers somewhere up in there. Matter of fact, the washer's right there, so. But I moved it from over here about 8 foot.
Looks like a bomb dropped. It's going to take a very long time for us to get back the way things were, if we even can.
The pain is shared by a 70-year-old Theophilus Charles, resident of Houma, Louisiana, who says he has got nothing left.
I need help. If anybody out there can help me, please do. Because I ain't got nowhere and I done lost everything I had. I mean, I done lost everything. And nothing I can do with this. Ain't no repair, you know. It don't make sense to repair this because you can't. Everything is gone. My walls, my roof, my ceiling, all my clothes, furniture, appliances, everything.
One of the most powerful hurricanes to hit the US Gulf Coast, Ida knocked out power to over 1 million houses in Louisiana and 113,000 houses in Mississippi. Damage to 8 high-voltage lines shut off electricity in New Orleans and nearby parishes, and parts of a transmission tower toppled into the Mississippi River when Ida struck. On Monday, emergency 911 services were largely disrupted in New Orleans, which were restored later. But worries are far from over. Authorities say that it can take weeks to restore power in some areas. On top of that, thousands have been left without water. On Monday, US President Joe Biden promised all possible help and said his administration was working with the electric sector to understand the full extent of damage.
We've been working with the electric sector throughout the night and all day today to assess and understand the full extent of the damage. To accelerate the process, I've asked the Federal Aviation Administration to work today with Louisiana and Mississippi electric companies to authorize the use of surveillance drones to assess Ida's damage to energy infrastructure, while ensuring those flights do not disrupt aerial search and rescue operations.
President Joe Biden also declared a major disaster in the state, ordering federal assistance to bolster recovery efforts. The White House, in a statement, said that the Federal Emergency Management Administration sent 3,600 of its personnel and 3.5 million meals to the storm-devastated area. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio declared a state of emergency on Wednesday night due to what he called a historic weather event. All non-emergency vehicles were banned from the New York City's street until 5 a.m. on Thursday due to dangerous road conditions. Hurricane Ida killed several people in Louisiana, with authorities fearing more deaths as rescue operations are currently underway. The National Guard has dispatched thousands of personnel as well as vehicles that can navigate flooded roads, boats and 34 helicopters to rescue people stranded by floodwaters, while power outages continue to pose a significant challenge for rescue workers. Hurricane Ida pounded Louisiana on August 29th after sweeping ashore from the Gulf of Mexico, flooding wide areas under heavy surf and torrential rains. Fierce winds toppled trees and power lines, and this plunged New Orleans into darkness after nightfall. As Hurricane Ida made landfall as an extremely dangerous Category 4 storm, those who did not flee were forced to evacuate. Just 3 days after emerging as a tropical storm in the Caribbean Sea, Ida swelled into a Category 4 hurricane on the 5-step Saffir-Simpson scale, with the top sustained winds of 150 miles per hour, according to officials. The storm's approach forced the suspension of emergency medical services in New Orleans and elsewhere across the state, already reeling from a fourth wave of COVID-19 infections that has strained Louisiana's healthcare system. Hundreds of miles of new levees were built around New Orleans after the devastation of Katrina, which made landfall 16 years ago, killing more than 1,800 people. The remnants of Hurricane Ida, which was forecast to become post-tropical as it tracked across the mid-Atlantic into the northeast, pummeled the region, causing flooding and tornadoes in parts of mid-Atlantic before bringing record-breaking rain to the New York City. Ida came alongside tropical storm Nora in Mexico's Puerto Vallarta on August 29 after torrential rains and heavy winds caused a building to partially collapse of a resort, killing one boy. The weather has turned hoary. Climate change is battering humanity like never before. It is fueling deadly weather across the globe, including stronger and more damaging hurricanes, giving strict warnings to mankind, prompting us to take substantial steps to save the future. DD India.
And now action from the world of sports. India's Union Minister of Youth Affairs and Sports Anurag Singh Thakur and Union Minister of Education Dharmendra Pradhan launched the Fit India Quiz, which is the first ever quiz on fitness and sports in New Delhi. Minister of State for Youth Affairs and Sports Nishit Pramanik also graced the launch event. Tokyo Olympic medalist Neeraj Chopra, PV Sindhu virtually joined this event. Here's more.
In a bid to provide students a platform to showcase their knowledge about sports and fitness, Fit India Quiz was launched in Delhi on Wednesday. Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan, Union Sports Minister Anurag Singh Thakur, Minister of State for Sports Nishit Pramanik, Olympic gold medalist Neeraj Chopra and badminton star PV Sindhu attended the event. The nationwide quiz will give a chance to compete on a national platform and an opportunity to win a total cash prize of more than 3 crore rupees for their schools.
1 सितंबर को फिट इंडिया क्विज की लॉन्च किया गया है। ये 1 सितंबर से 30 सितंबर तक इसमें रजिस्ट्रेशन होंगी और इसके लाखों स्कूल देश भर के इसमें पार्टिसिपेट कर सकते हैं। 3 करोड़ 25 लाख रुपए के इसमें इनाम मिलेंगे और इसमें जहां स्कूल को इनाम लाखों रुपए का मिलेगा, वहां पे खिलाड़ियों को भी लाखों रुपए के इनाम इसके साथ साथ मिल रहे हैं और जो पैसा स्कूल को मिलेगा उसको भी खेल गतिविधियों पर खर्च करना होगा।
पहली बार इतना बड़ा आकार से सारे विद्यालय को एक साथ जुड़कर, सारे शिक्षार्थियों को एक साथ जुड़कर इस फिट इंडिया मिशन में फिट इंडिया क्विज कंपटीशन की शुरुआत की जा रही है।
The Union Education Minister said that continuous efforts are being made to increase awareness about sports in the new education system.
तो जमाना चला गया कि हमारी पेरेंट्स, हमारी अभिभावक, हमारी टीचर हमारी कान पकड़ते हैं कि खेलते क्यों हो, पढ़ाई कब करोगे। इस बार तो प्रधानमंत्री जी ने लाल किले से कहा जो अच्छा पढ़ेगा उसको स्कूल में जैसे परीक्षा में नंबर मिलते हैं अपने खेल के लिए भी उनको नंबर मिलेगा और शिक्षा विभाग और खेल विभाग स्पोर्ट्स एंड एजुकेशन मिनिस्टर आर कमिंग टुगेदर टू क्रिएट ए न्यू आर्किटेक्ट दिस ईयर will begin a new chapter, will write a new chapter. All the Olympians will be graduate by next 4 years by earning credits.
Neeraj Chopra said that he's feeling very happy that now we are thinking and doing so much about sports. It will definitely motivate all students. PV Sindhu said that Fit India quiz is going to give a platform to students, and she appealed to every student to participate in the quiz.
When I used to go to school, so yes, there would be some of the quizzes where I would be really very much interested in, because jab hum start karte hain to, as Neeraj mentioned, initially it was just for fun. Maybe badminton aise hi start kiya tha, maybe sochi thi let me see where will I go, and also studies were important, and I continued the same way, equally balanced studies and badminton. So at the same time, मतलब हमको ये क्विज रहता था, और we used to have a couple of competitions where we had to attend and make sure. So every time as a student, I used to think, yes, we want to come first in every quiz. So it would be very interesting, and हम बहुत कुछ सीखते थे. So it is kind of a motivation and encouragement for the students, because ऐसे quizzes रहते तो even the teachers say them that yes, if you win this, you go to the next level. So that's kind of an encouragement that they give us.
स्कूल में होते थे तो सिर्फ जब हम खेलते थे तो हमको यही बोला जाता था कि नहीं चलो क्लास में चलो जाके पढ़ो, तो ऐसा लगता था कि यार स्पोर्ट्स में कुछ है ही नहीं, सिर्फ पढ़ो. लेकिन आज जो है इतना कुछ बदल रहा है अपने देश में कि स्पोर्ट्स को इतनी तवज्जो दी जा रही है, और मुझे लगता है कि ये बहुत ही अच्छा होने वाला है, क्योंकि मैं मानता हूँ कि स्पोर्ट्स एक ऐसी चीज है कि जो आप पढ़ाई के साथ साथ अगर 1 घंटा भी दिन में खेल लो तो आप बहुत ही पूरा दिन फ्रेश फील करोगे और बहुत ही एक्टिव रहोगे. और स्पोर्ट्स एक बहुत ही अच्छी चीज सिखाता है कि वो हमको लाइफ में हमेशा, क्योंकि अगर हम रोज खेलते हैं, कभी हारते हैं, कभी जीतते हैं, तो वो एक बहुत ही एक अच्छी चीज सिखाता है कि हम कभी भी डिमोरलाइज नहीं होंगे, स्पोर्ट्स खेलते रहेंगे. तो क्योंकि वो हार जीत का हमें बैलेंस करना सिखाता है, तो ये बहुत ही अच्छा लग रहा है कि पढ़ाई के साथ साथ स्पोर्ट्स को भी उतना ही जोड़ा जा रहा है जितना जरूरी पढ़ाई है.
To participate in the quiz, the schools have to register on the link provided on the Fit India website between 1st of September to 30th of September 2021 and nominate their students who will take part in the preliminary round of the quiz at the end of October. With inputs from Shailendra Mishra, Sports Desk, DD India.
At the Olympic Stadium in men's high jump event on a tough night in Tokyo, Sharat Kumar and Mariyappan Thangavelu jumped over more than just a bar. Apart from challenges athletes usually face during a major event like pressure and form, the Indian high jumpers had other things to overcome that makes their medal one bit extra special.
India bags 2 back-to-back medals in T63 category of men's high jump at the ongoing Tokyo Paralympics. India's Mariyappan Thangavelu wins silver medal in the event, while Sharat Kumar bags bronze medal in the same event. Mariyappan Thangavelu cleared the mark of 1.86 meters in his third and final attempt, bagging his second consecutive Paralympic medal. Earlier, Mariyappan Thangavelu won a gold medal at 2016 Rio Paralympics. The second medal came from Sharat Kumar, who won a bronze medal with a distance of 1.83 meters. Congratulating both para-athletes, the president tweeted, and I quote him, "Our Paralympians continue to make us proud. India is delighted by the success of Mariyappan Thangavelu and Sharat Kumar for winning silver and bronze medals respectively in men's high jump at Paralympics. Your resolve and perseverance are an inspiration for all. Congratulations." Prime Minister Narendra Modi also congratulated both the players. In a tweet, he said, and I quote him, "Soaring higher and higher, Mariyappan Thangavelu is synonymous with consistency and excellence. Congratulations to him for winning the silver medal. India is proud of his feat." In his second tweet, the Prime Minister wrote, The indomitable Sharad Kumar has brought smiles on the face of every Indian by winning the bronze medal. His life journey will motivate many. Congratulations to him. #Paralympics, #praise for para. Union Sports Minister Anurag Singh Thakur also congratulated both the players on this historic win. In a tweet, he wrote, and I quote him, "Mariappan wins silver for India. This is his second consecutive Paralympics medal. Historic in so many ways. Well played, champion," unquote. In another tweet, the Union Sports Minister congratulated, "India's medal shower continues. It's bronze for Sharad Kumar. Men's high jump T63 final, season best jump of 1.83 meters. Great performance, great spirit displayed," unquote. Union Sports Minister Anurag Singh Thakur also expressed happiness on India's historic feat touching double-digit figure in Tokyo Paralympics.
पैरालंपिक्स में सभी भारतीय खिलाड़ियों ने जो शानदार प्रदर्शन किया, डबल डिजिट की अगर मैं बात करूं कि 10 मेडल अब तक भारत के पैरालंपिक्स में हुए हैं, बहुत बहुत बधाई, बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं।
With this historic feat, India has now touched the double-digit figure, breaking previous records at the Paralympics. India's total medal tally has also gone up to 10, registering India's best ever performance in Paralympic Games so far. Sports Desk, DD India.
News now from a more intimate world around us. News beyond headlines.
A couple in Bolivia with a taste for the extravagant tied the knot on top of the Illimani mountain, the highest mountain in Cordillera Real of western Bolivia. Clearly visible from Bolivia's capital, La Paz, Illimani's eternal snows are frequently referenced in the music, mythology and literature of the Aymara people. Sunshine and pleasant temperatures ensured the day was an unforgettable experience for groom Johnny Pacheco and his bride Heidi Paco atop the mountain in the Andes. It took the couple 3 days to make the ascent to the summit from La Paz. The couple are from the central department of Cochabamba. Tiger Woods' backup putter from his sensational 2002 season has sold for $393,300 according to Golden Age Golf Auctions. The price paid for the Scotty Cameron putter has reportedly made it to the most expensive golf club ever sold. The putter was personally produced by Cameron for Woods and comes with a letter of authenticity. 15 times major champion Woods practiced and experimented with the putter but did not use it in competition. The gun that killed American Wild West outlaw Billy the Kid has been sold for more than $6 million at an auction in Los Angeles, more than double the pre-sale estimate. Bonham's auctioneer said the Colt single-action revolver that Sheriff Pat Garrett used to take down Billy the Kid in 1881 was brought over the phone by a person who wished to remain anonymous. The auctioneer said that the gun was expected to fetch between $2 to $3 million. Hundreds of colorful drones performed a light show in the night sky above Athens. The show took place at the Greek capital Stavros Niarchos Cultural Center, where the National Opera and Library are located. According to the organizers, around 200 drones lit up the sky in a synchronized display that which swept through the night, changing colors and shapes alongside a musical backing track. In Japan, a 19-year-old student and artist Monami Ono is turning card boxes into artworks. 10 years ago, she picked up a cardboard box for a homework assignment and made what she described was a bike-like thing. Years after, she has gained a reputation. Now, her work has been displayed in galleries at home in Japan and overseas. The artist is now relying on custom sculptures that she's commissioned to produce as a source of income. The fossilized remains of Big John, the largest Triceratops dinosaur ever discovered by paleontologists, will be sold by a Paris auction house in late September and could fetch up to 1.5 million euros. Big John roamed the land of modern-day South Dakota more than 66 million years ago. Paleontologists unearthed the first piece of bone in 2014, and by the time they were done, had found 60% of his skeleton, including a near-complete skull. The Druot auction house estimated Big John's skeleton would fetch between 1.2 to 1.5 million euros. Once primarily sold to museums, dinosaur remains have increasingly attracted private buyers, though their numbers remain few. An elephant gave birth to twins on Tuesday for the first time in nearly 80 years in Sri Lanka. The twins, both males, were born at Pinavala Elephant Orphanage in the Central Hills. The mother, a 25-year-old elephant named Surangi, had given birth before in 2009 to a male calf. The father of the twins is a 17-year-old elephant who is also an orphanage resident. Sri Lankan elephant experts said the previous birth of twins to a domesticated elephant was in 1941. In an unlikely crossover, Dragon Ball's Goku defeated the Flintstones in a recycle crazy car race in Peru. The event in Lima's San Miguel municipality saw contestants race in homemade cars built from recycled materials. The overall winners were three friends who built a car inspired by the Dragon Ball animation. The second and third place were taken by Flintstones and Fast and Furious themed cars. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
Let's now scan through some pandemic-related updates from across the world.
The European Commission said on Tuesday that 70% of the European Union's adult population had been fully vaccinated against COVID-19, hitting a target it had set at the beginning of the year. The announcement marks an important milestone in the EU vaccination strategy after a low start, but it also masks big differences among the EU countries, with some nations being well above the 70% goal, while others in the poorer eastern region of the bloc far behind.
Today, we reached an important milestone in our vaccination campaign. 70% of adults in the European Union are now fully vaccinated. And that is more than 250 million people who are immunized. And this is a great achievement, which really shows what we can do when we work together. But the pandemic is not over, and we must remain vigilant. So first of all, we need many more Europeans to vaccinate rapidly, to avoid a new wave of infections and to stop the emergence of new variants.
The European Union governments agreed on Monday to remove the United States from EU's safe travel list, meaning US visitors and those from 5 other countries are likely to face tighter controls such as COVID-19 tests and quarantines. Israel, Kosovo, Lebanon, Montenegro and North Macedonia have also been taken off. The list seeks to unify travel rules across the bloc, although it does not bind individual European Union nations, which are free to determine their own border policies. With the world still fighting against the pandemic, in South Africa, scientists have detected a new COVID variant with multiple mutations, although they are yet to establish whether it is more contagious or able to overcome the immunity provided by vaccines or prior infection. The new variant, known as C.1.2, was first detected in May and has now spread to most South African provinces and to 7 other countries. A WHO spokesperson said that C.1.2 did not appear to be increasing in circulation, adding that it was not currently classified as a variant of concern. Bangladesh will be able to vaccinate the targeted 80% of its over 160 million population by the next year. The country is expecting the receipt of the required number of vaccines from various sources to help it launch an accelerated inoculation campaign. Director General of Health Services, Dr. Abul Bashir Khurshid Alam, said that Bangladesh has already reached or finalized deals with various sources to procure vaccines to inoculate 130 million people. He said Bangladesh was set to purchase nearly 140 million doses of the vaccine by June next year. With the US being the worst hit country by the pandemic, school-based vaccine clinics rolled out on Monday in Los Angeles to vaccinate school employees and students aged 12 and above against COVID-19. The clinics offered Pfizer vaccine, which is approved for children over 12 years of age. Mobile vaccination teams will visit every middle and high school campus in the Los Angeles Unified School District to deliver first and second doses. Canada's most populous province, Ontario, said that people will be required to show proof of full vaccination to visit bars, restaurants, nightclubs and indoor sporting facilities from September 22nd. Several hundred people marched to Toronto to protest the planned regulation. In Brazil, residents at a retirement home in Rio de Janeiro have received a COVID booster jab. The city's government plans to administer third doses to all the residents in long-stay institutions by September 10th. Third dose vaccination of people over 95 will commence on September 13th and will continue until October 30th until it reaches 60-year-olds. In Greece, thousands of protesters gathered in central Athens to protest against mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations. Clashes were seen between police and protesters, while police attempting to disperse the protesters. Police used tear gas and water cannons on protesters who threw flares and other objects during the protest. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has opened a new epidemic intelligence hub with WHO Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus. The Chancellor thanked the WHO Director General for the heavy medal and said that there was still much to be done. The hub will serve as a collecting point for all available information on the viruses. The data will then be analyzed for use in the global fight against the pandemic. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
And some more news and developments in fast-forward mode from across the globe.
30th of August is the International Day of Victims of Enforced Disappearance. The United Nations General Assembly adopted the resolution of International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance on 30th of August and announced the International Day of Victims of Enforced Disappearance to be celebrated every year from 2011 onwards. According to UN Declaration on the Protection of All Persons from enforced disappearance is an abduction, arrest or detention of any person against his will by any government or organized groups. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on the occasion tweeted, "Enforced disappearance continues to be used across the world as a method of repression, terror and to stifle dissent. Countries must prevent this cowardly practice, search for the victims and investigate, prosecute and punish the perpetrators." In Brazil, more than 20 heavily armed robbers on Monday hit several banks in Aracatuba using locals as human shields, leaving a trail of explosive devices and shooting at police. At least 3 people were killed in the assault. The attackers used drones to monitor the streets as they entered the city, hit the banks and made their getaway. Brazil has a long history of bank heists and major lenders have struggled with a wave of violent robberies in recent years. A collision of 2 riverboats in the Amazon in Peru has left at least 20 passengers dead and others missing. The accident took place on the Ualaga River in Guyana when a boat full of passengers crashed into a fried barge amid dense mist at dawn. The passengers were returning to Yarimaguá city after participating in a vigil in a secluded hamlet in the jungle known as Santa Maria. US climate envoy John Kerry held talks in Tokyo on 31st of August with Japan's Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga and other ministers in cooperation on carbon emissions and cutting support for fossil fuels ahead of a trip to China tonight. The former Secretary of State has led US efforts to convince the global community of the threat of climate change and urged the acceleration of efforts to curb carbon emissions. The US push comes in advance of the UN COP26 climate conference, which will be held in Scotland later this year. Japan is the only G7 country building coal-fired power stations as it struggles with the aftermath of the Fukushima nuclear disaster, which led to the shutdown of most of the country's reactors. A day after an explosive wildfire emptied a resort city at the southern tip of Lake Tahoe, a huge firefighting force braced for strong winds Tuesday as some residents in neighboring Nevada were ordered to evacuate. The city of South Lake Tahoe, usually bustling with summer tourists, was eerily empty and the air thick and hazy with smoke from the Calder Fire, one of 2 major fires burning in the same area. On Monday, roughly 22,000 residents jammed the city's main artery for hours after they were ordered to leave as the fire advanced, chewing up drought-stricken vegetation. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with President Joe Biden in Washington on Wednesday. In their maiden face-to-face meeting since Biden took office in January, the US president told Zelensky that the US was firmly committed to Ukraine's territorial integrity. Biden also offered Kyiv $60 million in new security aid as it grapples with aggression from Moscow. The new security assistance package would include Javelin anti-armor systems and other defensive lethal and non-lethal capabilities, as well as $45 million in humanitarian aid. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
And in Global Scan, let's now find out the importance of this week in history.
On 30th August 1918, Vladimir Lenin, leader of Soviet Russia, was shot twice and wounded by Faria Kaplan, a member of the Social Revolutionary. Vladimir Lenin was speaking at a factory in Moscow. On 30th August in 1999, the Southeast Asian nation of East Timor voted massively in favor of independence from Indonesia, who had taken over the colony from Portugal in 1975. The UN-backed referendum of 1999 saw a 99% turnout. On 30th August in 2010, Mount Sinabung volcano in Sakanalu village, Indonesia, erupted for the first time in centuries. On August 31 in 1907, the Anglo-Russian Convention was signed in St. Petersburg, settling differences between Britain and Russia over Persia, Afghanistan and Tibet. On August 31 in 2003, world's longest television makes its debut at Hong Kong's Shenzhen racetrack. On September 1 in 1923, an earthquake struck Japan. At least 1,42,000 people were killed and over 2.5 million people were homeless. The initial jolt was followed a few minutes later by a 40-foot-high tsunami. A series of towering waves swept away thousands of people. The tumbler destroyed two of Japan's largest cities and traumatized the nation. On September 1 in 1999, Mireya Moscoso was sworn in as the first woman president of Panama. With 72% of the vote counted, Mireya Moscoso held a commanding lead of 44%. Moscoso became active in the 1968 presidential campaign of three-time President Arnulfo Arias, following and marrying him when he went into exile after a military coup. On 2nd September 1910, French painter Henri Rousseau died in Paris. He is considered to be the archetype of modern naive artist. He is known for his richly colored and meticulously detailed pictures of lush jungles, wild beasts and exotic figures.
And as we conclude this edition of Global Scan, we leave you with the images that stayed in news. Till we meet again, Namaskar.